We've already been introduced to two different class of people in Chainsaw Man. I guess people is being stretched there because one of them is devils and the other is humans. But in Chainsaw Man episode 2, we're going to be introduced to new characters like Aki and Power specifically is going to raise some questions because she and Denji are two different kinds of beings. So in this video, I want to discuss the difference between Denji and Power and how their powers work and why they're completely different things entirely. You see, Denji is what's known as a hybrid. Meanwhile, Power is what's known as a fiend. So let's explore the differences between those two, starting with Power since she's a new character and I want to get into that, right? And what is a fiend? So in Chainsaw Man, a fiend is what is created when a devil takes over a human's corpse. And this isn't something that a devil will usually do, right? This is something they do when they're on the brink of death, right? When there's no other options for them, they have to then go into this human body and possess that human body, right? And take it over and use it as their body, more or less. So let's say there's a situation where there's someone who is in an alleyway, right? They get stabbed, then they're just dead on the ground. A devil that's walking by that is just like, oh man, I really have no other options right now. I'm being hunted. My powers aren't really working. I need some time to regenerate and recoup. So I have to then go and possess this body that's on the ground. But that means that I am going to become this person, right? Or more so, they're going to become me. And that's kind of where we start getting into a weird sort of area talking about these fiends. There's not really a firm middle point between the original person that was there and the devil that is now taking over part of that personality, or almost all of that personality. Because while some fiends do only have the personality of the devil that is possessing that body, other fiends actually are allowed by the devil to keep some of their personality still within their body, right? Or even in other situations, they're just allowed to have free control of their body except for specific moments. So a fiend is when a devil takes over a human corpse and possesses it, and in that process, it loses a lot of power and a lot of what it can do, but still in its human corpse form, it still has some ability to use its original devil powers, just way weaker versions of what it could normally do if it was fully realized. Now, being a fiend isn't all that bad, I suppose, especially if you retain most of your personality, because yes, it does mean that you were saved from death and you wake up with some brand new powers and a couple physical differences. The first noticeable thing is somewhere on your head, somehow, there is going to be a change that signifies which devil has taken over your body. Like in Power's instance, we see that she has two little horns that stick out of her head, right, that are red like all the blood weapons that she makes with her ability. Or for Beam, another fiend that we've seen already in promotional art, who's been possessed by the shark devil, right? And of course he has a little shark sticking out of the top half of his face. But if you don't mind whatever weird physical change you end up getting from the devil that's inside you now, you do wake up with some new powers, right? You do wake up with enhanced speed and strength and stats like that. Those are all changed in a positive way. And of course, since there's a devil inside you, you now have the abilities of that devil, right? Like we said though, to a lesser extent. So Power, for instance, since she's possessed by the blood devil, she can use her blood or apparate blood to form weapons like giant hammers or swords or anything she kind of thinks of, more or less like a junior version of a Green Lantern power, just way more metal. Or Beam, who we talked about a second ago, who's the shark devil, right? And his ability is actually pretty much just Mirio's power from My Hero Academia. He can dive into walls, he can dive into the ground and dive through things and swim through surfaces, which is just a horrifying thing for the shark devil specifically to have, because it's just like Jaws, but nowhere is safe. You could be in your house and a shark can come crashing through the walls of your house, or I guess not even crashing, just phasing through everything and eat you and not even leave any evidence that that happened. That's horrifying. All the devils in Chainsaw Man are terrifying. But speaking of a giant shark jumping through the wall and tearing you apart, right? That would be what is known as Beam's full devil transformation. And that is an ability that some fiends rarely have, where the devil can actually summon its original form for a short period of time or under certain conditions and use its powers to the best of its ability. But I suppose one of the most useful things about a fiend is that, like any regular devil, it's able to regenerate based on how much blood it consumes. So they do have a form of hyper regeneration. Now, the most crippling weakness for a fiend is actually the fact that it can't make contracts with humans or devils, which means that once a devil who can do those things, by the way, takes on the form of a fiend, it's now completely locked out of forming any sort of new contracts in any way. But at the end of the day, when the fiend is killed, it will eventually reincarnate back in hell. but when they do, they more or less come back as a brand new version of that devil because they've lost all of their memories of the time that they spent on Earth as a fiend, and even before that as the devil that they were. So pretty much when you kill a fiend, their devil comes back in hell as a somewhat different devil representing the same exact thing with the same exact name. Sort of like how we've seen the Bat Devil 2 times in Chainsaw Man, and it's had different appearances both times that we've seen it. But with fiends explained, I think now it's time to talk about hybrids. And that's because that's exactly what Denji is in Chainsaw Man. You see, during my explanation of what a fiend was, I know some of you were thinking, well, that sounds exactly like what happened with Denji and Pochita. Denji was a dead body and then Pochita possessed his body, and wouldn't that make him a fiend also? But in actuality, what happened with Denji and Pochita is a little different. Although Denji was pretty much dead inside of that dumpster, Pochita fused with his body instead of just outright possessing it, and then actually became part of Denji's body by becoming his heart. This fusion between Denji the human and Pochita the devil, paired with the contract for Pochita to see Denji's dreams, allowed Denji to become a different kind of creature known again as a hybrid. And hybrids have benefits and bonuses over their fiend counterparts that you definitely want to hear about. Now, hybrids, unlike the usual fiend, actually retain their complete human personality. And instead of just being their respective devil in human form walking around, they're actually pretty much just their human form all the time until they want to transform into their devil forms. Something that we've already seen with Denji in episode 1, with him transforming into the Chainsaw Man to take down all of the zombie devil's minions. And you can see here how the powers are used are a little different already to how fiends use their powers, right? Because when Power uses her ability, she uses her blood to make weapons, whereas when Denji uses his power, his arms and head become chainsaws. And when transformed, you'll usually see parts of their body, like their arms or their head, change into the shape of the devil that they represent. So Denji obviously is the Chainsaw Man, he has chainsaws on his arms and head, and the other character that I suppose we could use for this video would be Katana Man, who of course is a hybrid for the Katana Devil. And being a hybrid just puts you in a whole different league above being a fiend. Because yes, like a fiend, when you're transformed, you're enhanced in every way, like your speed and your strength and stuff like that. And also like a fiend, you can use the abilities of the devil that you represent. But unlike a fiend, your abilities will be way more powerful, and you can actually get way closer to the true interpretation of the being that your hybrid form represents. Meaning for characters like Denji, he can really use every aspect of a chainsaw from the ripcord and everything to his advantage while he's doing battle, and it really allows him to get pretty creative with the use of a chainsaw. But for other characters that we might see later on in the season like the Bomb Devil, this hybrid transformation would allow them to use explosive power in their punches or kicks, and also take advantage of those same abilities to get places pretty fast, right? And be really, really speedy in the middle of battle. Now, another enhanced benefit that hybrids have over fiends is their regeneration. And like fiends, hybrids can consume blood to regenerate, but their regeneration is pretty much just consider it infinite, right? Like if they get blood, they will regenerate. And worse injuries for these characters, of course, demand more, but the long and short of it is if they get some, they will end up regenerating. And we've seen all different sort of scenarios in the manga from hybrids, like characters pretty much regenerating from the smallest pieces that you can imagine. So it really takes a lot to take these characters down. Usually it takes a hybrid to take another hybrid down. But therein lies the weakness of a hybrid, right? That you can eventually do enough damage to a hybrid to make them untransform and go back into their human form, right? And that is the form where they do have a weakness, where they are actually vulnerable. But again, sort of like reverse curse technique in Jujutsu Kaisen, another series that we do videos on, by the way, check the channel, even that human form itself can be healed using the powers of the hybrid if there is enough blood for the character to consume. Lastly, the last enhanced ability that I suppose a hybrid has over the fiends is while fiends are able to temporarily take on their devil form sometimes, right? Some fiends have that ability. Most hybrids eventually have the ability to transform into their original devil forms, right? And these forms are massively powerful, taking on more or less the full power of the original devil itself, or as close as you can get to it, inhabiting that human body. So we will end up seeing some of these later on in the series. Just pretty much imagine even cooler versions of the hybrid forms that we've seen already in the series, or that we will see over the course of this season. And those are all the things that hybrids can do better than fiends, but there's also something that hybrids can do that fiends just can't do at all, and that's make a contract with other devils. You see, in Chainsaw Man, we know that characters have the ability to actually gain powers by making contracts with the various devils that exist in the series. We saw that in Chainsaw Man episode 1 when the Yakuza made the contract of the zombie devil, even though that did end up turning them all into zombies. But you could imagine if you found a more advantageous devil to take advantage of, like the sword or katana devil or something like that, you could get better powers or a better situation, because you know they're probably just not going to turn you into a sword or a katana. You probably would have some better abilities just using those things. So while fiends are pretty much just added completely on their own, a character like, let's say, Denji could make contracts with a bunch of different devils and take on those abilities as well. But the reason that people don't really do that is devil contracts are really complicated, and they all come with their own sort of price to pay. And I suppose we can do a video explaining how that works and how people get power in Chainsaw Man and everything. That's going to be another video, because this video, it seems like, is done, because that is the difference between hybrids and fiends explained. And yeah, I'm excited for Chainsaw Man episode 2. Gonna be watching it in a bit. I'm recording this video right before I watch the episode and get my reaction already. So I'll see you guys later. It's Pineapple with another Chainsaw Man upload. Peace.